one, two, check one, two, check, check, check one, two, check one, two, check. Dan, how does this sound? Does it sound good? I hope my voice sounds beautiful. Should I keep going for you, Dan? Check one, two. Good morning. Good morning. It's gonna be a great day. And it's
You can hear me, but you can't see me. Okay. Trying to get my new Outlook to go on. I hate. Yeah, but I need to find the meet Zoom meeting on this brand new laptop.
All right, we're almost at 9:30, and I'm just going to invite people to get settled in. We have a few time constraints today, and so we're going to try to start exactly at 9:30.
Good, how are you?
Morning, how are you?
How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Hello. How are you doing?
Good to see you.
I have a little something to give both you and Brooke. This is, this morning the foundation's putting out $40 million in environmental justice grants. And it's half metro, half, I'm sorry, one-third metro, one-third
got hired to
non-metro, one-third native. So anybody doing environmental justice work, this comes through the EPA.
No, he's going to be here virtually.
Yeah, right. So we're just trying to spread the word.
All right, I will absolutely spread the word. Thank you.
I have a little gift. This is,
All right, we're going to call the meeting to order, and I thank you all for being here. And again, we're going to have some modifications to the agenda, which I'll go through in just a couple of minutes. But first, we'll begin with our roll call. Tammy, would you please call the roll?
Baker,
here.
Carlson,
Here.
Norton,
Here.
Rybeck,
Here.
Wheelock.
Here.
I believe Tyne was on and should be rejoining us momentarily, so we'll maybe give him a moment. And I understand that Mr. Williams is expected to join in about 15 minutes.
Then, Tammy, I'm going to ask you to remind me when they do rejoin to ask them to state the reason for their remote participations. That must be noted for the record. As you can probably tell, we have some board members with some conflicting commitments this morning. So what we're going to do is and I'd like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda, but amend the agenda as follows. So I would like us to consider agenda items 3, which is approving the agenda, 4, approving the minutes, and 7, the consent agenda. And then we'll proceed directly to the action items, which is action item number 10, the historic district infrastructure. Item 11, the criteria for the use of the BRT contingency. Item 12, amending the 2025 CIP. Then consideration of item number 8, our commendation of Council President Carlson. And then following that, we'll take up the remaining agenda items in order. The public comment, the chair's report, metrics, private development updates, a report from Chancellor Carroll, and staff status reports. So is there a motion to approve these amendments?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Tammy, please call the roll.
Baker,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Rybeck,
Aye.
Tyne. I saw him there.
He's not in. And drop. Yeah, he's not connected.
Then we will have to wait.
All right, we will wait for the action items until either Member Tyne or Member Williams is able to join us. And so let's at least start discussion. And so Patrick, I'm going to ask you to maybe kick off the discussion of the Downtown Historic District Infrastructure Project request.
Great, thank you. Inviting Jamie Rothe to join. This will be an action item.
And just for the members and the audience considerations, if we reach the end of our discussion and don't yet have a quorum, we'll proceed to the discussion of the next action item.
Great, so thank you. Moving to the Historic District Infrastructure request, as you know, the board established a program of support for Rochester's Downtown Historic District, recognizing it as an important part of the infrastructure, the experience infrastructure of our community. The city of Rochester established a historic district some months ago after years of dialogue and discussion, landing on an idea of some 30 contributing properties to the historic district, and our board agreed to provide support for individual properties that we're working to preserve and enhance the history of those buildings and the preservation of those buildings. So with that, Jamie.
Thank you. Good morning. It's great to be here again. We're very excited to share the newest round of applications for your consideration today. Just a quick reminder, we were here in September where you made an approval to support 216 First Avenue Southwest. That's where BBAP in 1942 is for a roof replacement. That was the first project to receive approval for funding, and it's exciting to see that project continue to move forward. I also wanted to remind the group of the impact of investment. This slide was shown to you back in September as well, when we started to begin to estimate where we thought we would see improvements and what type of impact we would have on our community. And so that middle slide, sorry about the jumbled numbers and letters there, but this is what our goals are and where we're aiming towards. So today we have 3 projects in front of you. I also wanted to note that while we're reviewing these 3 applications, we've seen 4 additional intake forms also submitted as well, which is really exciting to see so many people interested in this program. And while we have 4 intake forms, there's numerous other conversations that are happening in our community as well about other projects. So again, these are the 3 that are in front of you today. The one on the left currently houses Merrill Restaurant, which is on the corner of Broadway. The second building is where City Market and Food Union is currently located. Then, of course, the Riverside building, we have a number of organizations and businesses located in, including LibLab and Winona State University. In your packets, you'll have this detailed information as well. These are the projects that they're looking to do. Above Merrill, this property owner is looking to develop second-story housing, which is an exciting opportunity for our community to add more housing and diverse housing downtown. The second project on 400 Broadway is roof replacement, brick and tuck pointing, interior renovations as well. And then the third is roof and truss replacement. And again, there's more detail in your packet. We wanted to give you a glimpse of, if this is approved, where we're at for the total budget today. So we're looking right now, if approved, out of the $5 million budget, we would be sitting at about $793,000 of invested DMC funds. And so with that, we'll open up for discussion related to this funding request.
I'm going to pause on that discussion item because I do believe we have Member Tyne that is participating. And so, Tammy, first, would you note for the record his participation? Commissioner Tyne, we are required to have an explanation about your participation virtually. So we have already stated you have a scheduling conflict. Would you mind stating what that is?
I'm at county board meetings all day today, so I'm 2 blocks away, but
Well, thank you for making the accommodation to participate virtually. We'll note that for the record for participation. We do have a motion to approve the amendments to the agenda that's been moved and seconded. And Tammy, can I ask you to call the roll?
Yes. Baker?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Norton?
Aye.
Rybeck?
Aye.
Tyne?
Aye.
Wheelock?
Aye.
That motion carries.
And next, can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Tammy, please call the roll.
Baker?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Norton?
Aye.
Rybeck?
Aye.
Tyne?
Aye.
Wheelock?
Aye.
That motion carries.
And a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Tammy, please call the roll.
Baker?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Norton?
Aye.
Rybeck?
Aye.
Tyne?
Aye.
And Wheelock?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. So we're all up to speed.
Yay.
Thank you, Jamie and Patrick, for the presentation. I think that the board would agree that this is very exciting, the amount of interest that there is in a shared reinvestment in the downtown area. This is part of what makes the character of downtown so valuable, enjoyable, and the proximity of this retail and restaurant activity in interesting structures that can be preserved and last for another generation or beyond is exactly what was intended. Member Ryback, I think you
Right.
have a question or a comment?
It's a comment, actually. You know, sometimes our role is to pass things, but it's also important, I think, to connect the dots on what's happened on the sweep of this. And the context is important here because when we were setting up DMC, one of the, if not the most significant opposition was from this cluster of issues around historic preservation. Were we going to come in and put a bunch of money in and bulldoze down what is special about Rochester? And when you fast forward to this, we made real serious commitments, I thought at that time, to people that we were in violent agreement that the part of the thing that's so special about Rochester is that you can have the single best medical institution in the world next to really wonderful small businesses, next to walkable residential neighborhoods. And I think this is ongoing, a sense that we were serious about that, and there's a real partnership around this. And there were really great advocates in the community. There was also a very effective lobbyist named my wife who said, I have a memory of every single block of that downtown growing up. You tear it down and you move out of the house. So thank you for the lobbying from all sources. But in general, I think this is really an important thing for us to remember because we're going to be talking more and more about the Unbound project. And this idea about these very fragile seams between these different uses, we really have to blend the seams all together. And I think this is really wonderful. And the final point is, isn't it great to have housing above the office, and live, work neighborhoods is what we want. So this is great.
Yeah, and the commitment by the property owners to make a
Absolutely.
equitable investment as well. Member Carlson?
Everything's been really well said so far. I love that concept of fragile seams. I think that applies to many aspects around DMC
Yeah.
and the integrated uses within. I would just say from a council perspective, this is really a best case scenario that we took forever, as we talked about before, to make this decision to designate an historic district and to see businesses and property owners willing to commit the resources and finding value in the resources we've decided to put forward is really exciting and hopeful and contributes to our economy. So it's a fabulous outcome.
Is there a motion for approval of the resolution?
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Can I just,
Member Norton?
I'm not going to say the same thing because it's been said. Both of you said exactly what I wanted to say. As someone who sat in the chair up in St. Paul, lobbied by some of the very people who were concerned about this, it is so exciting to know that their fears are being, allayed. We're able to invest in those beautiful properties, and I'm really excited for what's to come. So happy to support this. Very excited.
Tammy, would you call the roll?
Baker,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Ryback,
Aye.
Tyne,
Aye.
and Wheelock.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jamie. Next item is criteria for use of the Link Bus Rapid Transit contingency funding. And Patrick is going to present this. Just as a reminder, we do have a contingency already in place. This is a requirement to increase that contingency, but nothing will be spent from this contingency without coming back for DMCC approval. So Patrick and Cindy,
Thank you.
Patrick or Cindy, would you present?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm joined by Cindy Steinhauser, my partner at the city, who is leading all of this work associated with Unbound and the downtown development and infrastructure. She came before us as a part of the budget process last September and requested support for additional contingency as required by the FTA. And at that time, our board authorized support, but asked that there could be criteria or guidelines established about how that contingency would be used. And with that, and Cindy and our team worked closely over the last couple of months to prepare this recommendation. Cindy.
Great, thanks, Patrick. As indicated on the slide before you, what we're asking for is 13.74 of additional contingency. Again, this is an FTA-required contingency following a readiness review earlier this year in reviewing all of the components of the BRT Link Rapid Transit project. However, we believe it's important to have some guardrails, as you requested, and so what we'd like to propose is that the guardrails related to the use of this additional contingency are as follows. The first one being the preservation and use of contingency funds. And I know that the criteria is in greater detail in your packet. I will just highlight that under the preservation and use of contingency funds, our goal is to really complete the BRT project without expending this standalone contingency. We realize these are limited dollars and we'd like to see them reallocated to other transit initiatives. So we're going to work very hard to not tap into them. The next item is the contingency use of approval and that reporting process, and so that we would report to at each DMCC board meeting the status of the project as a whole, the use of the other contingency budgets that are already built into the project, and the necessity to use this other standalone contingency, again, contingent upon the approval of the DMCC board and then execution by the city. The third is how we might use these dollars. In the anticipated expenditures, we really identified 3 areas. The first one is necessary. Is the work being asked for funding necessary? And by that we mean, is it time sensitive? Are there unforeseen field conditions or adjustments with adjacent public infrastructure or property? And we've put a cap on that the per order expenditure limit is $350,000. The next is optimization. And so is there an opportunity to improve the project and the long-term experience? Improve the user experience, perhaps decrease long-term operating or maintenance costs, or leverage construction activity. Those are the criteria that we'd be looking at in optimization. Again, a pre-order expenditure, a limit of $150,000, and a not-to-exceed cap of $2 million. And third is business forward approach. And so thinking about how dollars might be used to reduce the impact of construction on individuals and properties that are in proximity to the project. And again, an aggregate total for that is to not exceed $750,000. So I think some really great stuff that the team developed. And then when we think about reporting, again, wanting to make sure that we provide you not only report on the use of these funds, but on the project as a whole, and that we would provide that BRT update at each of your board meetings. We talk about milestones, where we're at with the budget, what's coming up, being forecasted, how we are in terms of being on time and on budget, and a summation of change orders, work orders, and there's greater detail in your packet. But that is the parameters with which we've established, and we feel really confident that we'll be able to achieve them. And so our ask is for you to approve this contingency criteria and the approval of the contingency funding.
Member Norton.
Yes, I think this is great, and I love that we've really focused on preserving these funds and having it being that source of, last resort. Under anticipated expenditures, number 3, maybe this goes without saying, but I guess you have, project elements that are deemed necessary. I wondered if there was, if it's anticipated in that statement and in this section that other sources of funds that are available or appropriate might be considered first before a DMC. And maybe that goes without saying, but as we're building this out and depending on what the request is, it might be appropriate to ask others to help with that funding. So just thought I would mention that as one of the options.
Could I just also add, if it wasn't clear, that none of these contingency resources will be used without coming back to the DMCC board. So there is already contingency baked into every line item in the BRT budget. The city will use that contingency using its current practices. And the expectation is there's already enough contingency in those line items so that this is really a safety net, and it would only be used if authorized by this board, sort of with this framework in mind.
Yeah, thank you for emphasizing that. I think that's the last sentence of paragraph A in the resolution, and so I feel like the public record duly notes that. I do want to also note for the public record that Member Williams has joined us today. And Member Williams, we are required to have a notation about virtual participation, so could you provide some explanation of the virtual presence?
It's meeting conflict with another board meeting in the Twin Cities.
Thank you. All right, other questions or comments on this item?
Quick comment.
Member Rybeck?
Small point, but I want to put this in. We're building infrastructure, we're working with vehicles, things, but we're also dealing with change management. And I just think when we're thinking about those contingencies, and I know we're going to take a look at this, I think we should also just keep our eye on the idea of marketing and tools that basically convince people that it's a good deal for all of us for them to park remotely and take this vehicle in. That seems like a subtle thing, but if you really look at transit ridership, it often takes ongoing marketing to remind people of those assets. So just something to stick in the back of our mind if we have contingency.
And whether, I would add, whether that's a project cost or whether that's an operational cost, I think we would need to come back and clarify that.
Right.
Because I also want to remind people that we do have a contingency for the project in place. So it's not with any expectation that we will spend any of this for the eligible expenses that you've laid out in the criteria. So I think that would be part of the ongoing discussion.
Got it.
Seeing no further discussion, I'll ask Tammy to call the roll.
Do we need to move the resolution?
Oh, I'm sorry. How about a motion to approve the resolution? Moved, is there a second?
Second.
Now we'll call the roll.
Wonderful. Baker.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Norton.
Aye.
Rybeck.
Aye.
Tyne.
Aye.
Wheelock.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next on the, thank you, Cindy. Next on the agenda, we have the amending the 2025 five-year capital improvement plan related to infrastructure in the downtown area that will be proceeding early in 2025. So Patrick?
Thank you, and again, I'll ask Cindy to join me in this presentation. This presentation harkens back to a discussion we had at the budget process and began to foreshadow what we think is going to be an opportunity for significant DMC involvement in the infrastructure adjacent to the Unbound project. And so we know that during the development of Mayo's Unbound project, that $5 billion initiative, which really is really multiple buildings, it's not one single structure, multiple buildings over some 20 city blocks that will be disrupted. There will be opportunities to optimize that disruption to achieve other objectives that we have from a civic point of view. And while we're not here today to provide that more fulsome discussion and presentation about what that looks like, we have, subsequent to the September meeting, spent under Cindy's leadership and her staff leadership, have done a great deal of work to understand what's under the street, what surface level conditions we want to land at. But while we're doing that work and while we're preparing for a more complete discussion at our February meeting, there is a time-sensitive opportunity that we want you to consider and recommend that we advance for approval and amendment to our CIP budget to keep pace with an opportunity in front of us. So Cindy?
Great, thank you, Patrick. And so just to build off of that, what we're asking for is you consider an additional capital investment of $1.6 million of GSIA funding in the 2025 DMC CIP. You currently have in the capital budget $1 million that is a placeholder for alignment of infrastructure related to Unbound. This is in addition to that request. These dollars are when we built this budget, had anticipated looking at these dollars for additional design work that would need to happen in the greater Unbound area. As Patrick indicated, Unbound is about 20 blocks. The area that we are doing this analysis in is more like 30 blocks. And here is a map that kind of zooms out and shows you this particular ask, the 1.6 million, the area of investment. The location is generally, it's the location of where the first project is going off the ground in terms of Unbound. It's the northern parking ramp. And so we're talking about Center Street West between 4th and 5th Avenue Northwest. We're talking about 5th Avenue Northwest between Center Street West and 1st Avenue Northwest, and then 1st Street Northwest between 4th and 5th Avenue Northwest. So here, as we zoom in, you can see close-up detail of the area of investment. It's 3 of the 4 sides of the parking ramp. The request for the funding is really to do a number of things. What we want to do is modernize and upsize sanitary and storm sewer lines, really to accommodate future growth of this area. We are actively in conversations with developers in this area that go beyond the Mayo project. It's also to add improvements to the bicycle trail network, an important east-west connection for that bicycle trail network along Center Street West. As Patrick indicated, this work is very time sensitive. Some of this work is beginning, the unbound portion of this work is beginning in Q1 of next year. It's important that we align with that. And so we're asking for $1.6 million in GSIA so that we can do our work in tandem with them. Following your approval, we will take this request to the City Council at the next Monday's council meeting. And then talking about, as Patrick indicated, additional analysis. As we said, while Unbound is about 20 blocks, the area of analysis for us is about 30 square blocks. It's important that we understand the infrastructure needs. Our goal is that we make the kind of investment now that supports future growth and innovation, not only for private development to occur, but also in that public realm. I really resonated with me, Member Rybeck, when you said fragile seams. And so we have principles associated with our analysis. And what's community benefit? What's our holistic approach? What's that asset sharing commitment to that holistic approach? And I think fragile seams is a really great way to capture what we're trying to make sure we build off of. And so, again, the support, we would anticipate coming back to you for a partnership to look at that holistic approach to further investment in this area. But for now, the request is $1.6 million of GSIA in an amended 2025 DMC CIP budget.
Could you go back to
Yeah.
I'm just going to go back to this map to see the geography a bit. This square box, the black box around the focus area, but you can see the larger area that we will be part of the discussion coming up in February.
Thank you. I want to share that I know that Patrick, Cindy, and many others have spent a lot of time already analyzing what the conditions are below grade of our public utilities, what our opportunities might be, where the criticality is to support the expansion of Mayo, and what might be most strategic around supporting some of the other goals. There is not yet a position of the full board on this. We need a fuller presentation of all of that and to talk through our differing perspectives of how we prioritize the DMC funds, what the DMC funds are most effectively used to provide, what the understanding was when the legislation was passed about public infrastructure in this area. We're not going to have that conversation today. I've asked Patrick to work with others to prepare for a fuller discussion in February. And we're also very mindful that for these investments, communities plan their own capital budget multi-year, long in advance. And the timeliness of this investment does not really even allow for that full consideration at a municipal level. So I am strongly in support of this resolution and will be voting in accordance with that today, but also very interested in a fuller, more complete discussion so we can assess all of the opportunities in this area and ideally arrive at a consensus about what role DMC can and will play to meet various goals related to that infrastructure investment. So Member Carlson?
Very quick comment, since I won't be part of the February discussion. But I do appreciate that staff have been working really hard and really thoughtfully about how to create sort of a braided model that ties together DMC resources, Mayo investment, and considers other resources to fund not only the infrastructure to make make Unbound successful, but to think about how what the streetscaping, what the street level impact will be, and how it connects to our downtown, to nearby neighborhoods like Kutzke, at those fragile seams, which is now my new favorite term. And I just think that this is has incredible opportunity, and look forward to hearing the discussion in February, but really encourage us as a DMC board to continue investing, because it does add vibrancy to our downtown and really make what we're trying to achieve here together with Mayo more appealing and successful for people in our community and visiting our community.
Member Ryback?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I want to just say I definitely hear what I think is a subtext of what you were saying, which is we have a very complicated role of trying to figure out what's the state's role, what's the city's role, and others. And you've been in all these levels and probably can lead us through this better than anyone. So I'm looking forward to that big conversation on it. I think this especially is one of those moments where if we don't do this, the neighborhood will say, gee, you tore up everything for a few years, you built this huge thing next to me, and now you're coming in 2 years later because the sewer needs to get redone and you're tearing it up again. So I definitely get that. How we navigate this long term, we need that big discussion. So I'm in favor of this, and I'm in favor of the big discussion.
Any other comments? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval?
Paul has his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul? Member Williams?
Yeah, just echoing what everybody else has said, I think I look forward to the broader conversation and the catalytic. I'm thrilled to see this getting moving right away, and happy that we can be part of kind of the early web of support to get it moving. So I look forward to the larger conversation.
It is interesting to me that 3 of the 4 gubernatorial appointees all have municipal experience. And I will recount that I remember driving down the streets of St. Paul when I became budget director, wondering about the integrity of the sewer system 80 or 100 feet below. So there's understanding and sympathy. We just have to figure out how it aligns with our priority and other known and yet to be known opportunities for investment to achieve our goals.
The only gubernatorial appointee who doesn't have municipal experience is Jim Campbell, and everybody said he ran Minneapolis anyway. So I think it's,
Says the former mayor of Minneapolis.
it was true.
All right, is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
And Tammy, would you call the roll?
Member Baker?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Norton?
Hi.
Ryback?
Aye.
Tyne?
Aye.
Wheelock?
Aye.
Williams?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Madam Chair, I'll just clarify that all 3 of these action items will advance to the city council for action at a subsequent meeting.
Thank you. And will you just make sure you pass along to the board members the results of that discussion if they're anything other than affirmative? All right, thank you. All right, our final action item of the day is accommodation for our member and also council president Carlson. And I'd like to open it up for comments, but is there a motion first so we can have the resolution on the floor?
Madam Chair, I would love to move the commendation of Brooke Carlson and express gratitude and appreciation for her service to the Destination Medical Center Corporation.
Is there a second?
Second.
That's so great, because my husband's like, I hope it gets a second.
Sigh of relief.
It's been moved and seconded. Let's open it up for members. Any other comments or discussion? Member Williams?
Well, yeah, I just I so appreciate the thoughtfulness, the forward-looking, and just the perspective that that you've brought to our work. And I've really enjoyed getting to know you and appreciate kind of your broader perspective on just kind of urban development, community development more broadly. So just a word of thanks for your thoughtfulness. And sorry I couldn't be there today to give you a handshake and a hug.
Thank you, Paul.
Other comments, Member Ryback?
Yeah, I'll go. First up, Council President, it's been just great having you here. And I think we really struggle with trying to make sure that we're aligned with where the council is going, and we're not doing city work, but we're doing our work. And I think you've brought that voice in. You've also brought in the voice of Civic Rochester in a really big way. And you're going back to Civic Rochester, and if you think you're getting away from us, I think we really need your ongoing voice in this. So nice try in trying to get away from DMC, but we're on you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to just, you know,
Norton?
yeah, thank you. Just thank Brooke so much for being a partner here, representing the city and our needs and our goals, along with blending those with the goals of Mayo Clinic and Destination Medical Center. And I think you've done a really great job in helping keep that balance, keeping me calm as we've moved along as well. You know, I think people sometimes think everybody, you know, we're one voice. And President Carlson, our council president, and DMC board member Carlson and I have had times when we have disagreed on things. But it has always been a respectful disagreement that's about a subject. It's never affected our working relationship, and that is rare sometimes to find in politics. So I just want to say I will miss you. And no, she can't completely run away. We need her here in Rochester. So, but thank you so much for your service, and look forward to working with you.
Any other comments, Member Baker?
Well, I'll say mixed blessings here because one, we're going to miss you, and two, I'll no longer be the rookie, I guess, going forward.
Is that
But,
my audience?
right, yeah, but anyway, you've been terrific on here, and I would say I have a short experience on this board versus others. I think the working relationship that's been built over the years between the city, the county, Mayo, is really terrific, and a lot of it goes to you. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
And I will just simply add that it has been very important that you've been a member of this effort. It is no easy task to be president of a city council, and with the complexity of this issue and the impact for this community, the artful weaving of your way to build consensus among all of those varied interests has been impressive, and we have relied on it greatly, and we are in a better place now than we were before because of your participation on this board. And I'm going to ask Tammy to actually fully read the resolution,
Good.
Can I make a comment too?
and then we're going to vote on it, and then you can make a comment.
Yeah,
So,
to be official first.
Tammy, would you be so kind, and, oh, I'm sorry, Member Tyne, I see you have your hand raised as well. Member Tyne?
Well, I don't want to miss the opportunity to tell Brooke how much I admire her, and I've enjoyed working with her, and I really appreciate your commitment to the city of Rochester and DMC. So let's keep in contact.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark.
I would ask, can we put the resolution on the screen?
Can we put the resolution on the screen, perhaps?
And also,
And actually, I can read the resolution.
and
so-
also, just before you read it, I asked my kids to read it this morning. One of them said, no, thank you, and one of them said, I'll read it later tonight. Feeling very
Well-
valued today.
The commendation begins, whereas the Destination Medical Center Corporation, DMCC, was established by law in 2013 to exercise oversight, adopt plans, and approve projects as part of an initiative by the state of Minnesota to make Mayo Clinic and the city of Rochester, Minnesota, the city, a destination medical center. And whereas since its inception, the DMCC has worked closely with the city to accomplish the goals of the law. And whereas Brooke Carlson has served as the president of the city council, as well as a city representative on the board of directors for the DMCC, and has been an integral partner in the close cooperation between DMCC and the city. And whereas Ms. Carlson offered a unique perspective to the DMCC by virtue of her years of public service to the city, which enhanced the expertise she offered to the DMCC, including championing city and DMCC efforts to secure more than $100 million in federal grants for key public infrastructure projects, including the 6th Street Southeast Corridor, Soldiers Memorial Field, Chateau Theater, and the Link Bus Rapid Transit Initiative. And whereas Ms. Carlson has been instrumental in the support and adoption of programs and projects to advance economic equity and community co-design, targeted business and workforce utilization across DMCC and city projects, affordable and workforce housing, sustainability, and the development of Rochester's life science ecosystem. And whereas Ms. Carlson has been unwavering in her stewardship of the city and in her commitment to the citizens of Rochester, as well as in her service to the DMCC and the Destination Medical Center Initiative. Resolution, now therefore be it resolved by the Destination Medical Center Corporation Board of Directors that it commends Brooke Carlson for her service to the city of Rochester, her work to advance the Destination Medical Center initiative, and her cooperation with the board. Be it further resolved that the board expresses its gratitude and appreciation to Ms. Carlson for her willingness to share her significant expertise and experience with the DMCC in its goal to make Rochester, Minnesota, America's city for health. Tammy, would you call the roll?
Member Baker.
Aye.
Carlson?
Abstain.
Abstain. Norton.
Oh, yeah,
Norton?
we still have quorum.
Aye.
Ryback?
Aye.
Tyne?
Aye.
Wheelock?
Aye.
Williams?
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 abstention, that motion
And
carries.
now another round of applause.
Okay.
We'll let Member Carlson make some comments.
I will be brief. It's a very weird experience as an elected official to get such kind words sent your way. So thank you for just such a thoughtful resolution, and all of your comments really mean the world to me. It's been a tremendous honor to serve and represent our council in advancing the priorities of our city through DMC. And what a privilege it's been to serve alongside all of you who are just incredible leaders and role models in our state and in our nation. And to see your commitment to Rochester is really an incredible thing. Chair Wheelock, I've been a facilitator for 20 years, and I still learn from you every single meeting. Your gracious and graceful, steadfast leadership has really just been important for me to learn from, and I'm so grateful. Oh, Mayor.
I'm afraid to hear anything else. That's good enough, thank you.
Since this is our last public meeting together, and I won't get to say anything on Monday as you're on your fabulous vacation and leaving me to be mayor for the last weeks of my tenure, obviously we've been through the thick of it. And like you said, we have so much respect for each other and really have become trusted allies and confidants and friends, and I'm so grateful for you. And even when we disagree, it's a good thing. Healthy tension, it's a good thing. Thank you. To the DMC team and staff, how awesome it's been to watch you all grow and continue to embrace issues that are important to me in our community, like equity and hearing and truly listening to and incorporated voices of marginalized communities and centering sustainability. And just the future is so bright under your leadership, and I'm excited to watch how this continues to unfold for our community to make it better and prepare for this transformation ahead of us. So thank you all. I didn't mean to get sappy, but I just really appreciate a moment to share my gratitude for everyone. And I'm looking over at President-elect Schubring, and you will be in wonderful hands with Randy as he steps into this role. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our action items for today's agenda. I want to state to Member Tyne and Member Williams my appreciation for your efforts to modify your schedule to participate virtually, so we had a quorum, and we understand that you will leave when you need to leave. And again, we wish you the best and thank you for your participation, and happy holidays.
Thank
Right,
you.
we're going to open up the floor now for public comment. All commentators are asked to state their name and keep their comments to no more than 10 minutes. Is there anyone that wishes to address the board? And I'm first going to ask if there's anyone virtually that will be participating in the public comment period. An indication is no, there is not. Is there anyone in the room that would like to participate? Okay, go ahead.
Morning.
Brenda Quay, R&R Properties. As you're aware, we have chosen not to amend our application. DMC's edict on 9/26 has required very low income housing for funding within DMC boundaries. We respect DMC's right to determine when and how to use the funds they receive from the citizens of the state of Minnesota. However, I should not have been put through 6 months of combative financial review and a 50-page application on when DMC knew in June that they were not going to fund my project. A policy decision should have been made at the board level long before our application was ever submitted and not in public. Rochester and Olmsted County still have a housing problem. With 4,000 units of unmet demand in downtown Rochester and 18,000 units in Olmsted County, rents will continue to climb. All of the apartment buildings in downtown Rochester have a 0 to 3% vacancy rate right now. Any new inventory is at least 2 years away. We will continue to slowly move forward with our project, sadly without DMC gap financing, because we know the city desperately needs more housing and there is next to nothing in the pipeline. Most banks are actively looking for deposits and not lending new dollars. Interest rates are high and funding sources are hard to come by. We have invested in Rochester for 25 years and in this site, as DMC wants businesses to do for the last 10 years. And we intend to build workforce housing to support Mayo Clinic employees and to improve the built environment in downtown Rochester. All DMC and City of Rochester goals. As a female-owned commercial real estate development firm, we are one of only 5 firms in the entire state. With a population of 5.7 million, that literally makes me 1 in a million. We had hoped that DMC would support us from a DEI perspective at a minimum. Any change to your 926 funding decision would be welcome. Our $6 million gap was only 40% of the $16 million in free land provided to Sherman Associates, someone who has never worked in Rochester, for the Civic Center North project. We have not been invited to be part of the DMC Zumbro Lutheran Church master planning process on the remainder of our block, so we wanted to keep you informed. From our national multifamily architectural firm, BKV Group, we present our project, The Klimt, an ode to the world-renowned Austrian painter Gustav Klimt and the Art Nouveau movement of the 1920s. We heard you. We designed something catalytic for Discovery Walk, a museum disguised as a housing project. Composed of gold metal panels and midnight blue fiber cement board, the exterior materials reflect some of Klimt's most famous paintings. The blank wall on the south facade will have a 60-foot recreation of Klimt's portrait of Adele Bloch-Bauer until something is built up against it. Klimt's paintings will be featured throughout the common areas of the development, and the interiors will feel more like a New York City museum than a Rochester housing project. Many of Klimt's paintings were stolen by the Nazis during World War II, including this one. It took an 8-year court battle to get the work back into the hands of the original owners. The original painting now hangs in the Newey Gallery, owned by the heirs to the Estee Lauder Cosmetic Company on the east side of Central Park in New York City. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Other public comment? Public commentators? Commenters? All right, I'll close the public comment period. Thank you for that. And we'll move forward to the chair's report. And so for the chair's report, I'd like to note that this is our final meeting for 2024. And it was only a year ago, actually, that we learned, or it was announced officially, of Mayo Clinic's multi-billion-dollar investment known as the Bold Forward Unbound in Rochester. And along with the city and other community partners, we've mobilized to fully optimize this opportunity, including the action today and additional future action on public infrastructure in this area. We've supported increased city staff capacity and greater alignment and to prepare for this growth in the downtown. And we're also seeing the benefits of many of our earlier investments. In the first full season of Soldiers Field's operation, more than 67,000 used the new aquatic center, double the usage in previous years. Property owners in the historic district, as we know from our action today, are reinvesting in their properties, partially supported by DMCC, ensuring that the historic character of Rochester remains and it will continue to grow. The years of preparatory work led by the October confirmation of more than $84 million in federal funding for the Link bus rapid transit system, and the years of preparatory work led to that. And then the activation of Peace Plaza and the Chateau Theater continues to grow and diversify, including activities such as Latino Fest, Indian Festival of Colors, Holiday Market, UMR State of the Campus program, private weddings, and many others. Active engagement with developers of workforce housing along the riverfront and at the West Transit Village. Completion of Discovery Walk, this new people-centric approach to moving through the downtown and Soldiers Field. And our business development team has hosted delegations from many countries, including Denmark, Australia, Germany, Israel, Finland, Brazil, and Singapore, affirming interest in Rochester and Minnesota as a place to grow in the U.S. So this is just a piece of the work that we've completed, but we know from today's meeting that this is complex work. There was no roadmap that was laid out when the legislation was passed. There are competing priorities that are both known and unknown, and our task is to figure out how to make the highest and the best use of public resources to advance our process. We can always do a better job about making ourselves more accessible to our partners, to the members of the public, to business owners, to developers. And I think the public nature of our work, we have an accountability to explain the behavior, the decisions, the choices that we make, which we try to do when we meet publicly. And I appreciate the commitment of those that are on this board and everyone that supports the work to make sure that this is a community that can really achieve the generational change that we have set out for ourselves as a goal for the work that we are doing, and to fully leverage the billions of dollars of investment from Mayo Clinic, which is not only important to the city, to this region of the state, to the state of Minnesota, and to the surrounding area, but it is an institution that provides premier care across the world, and we are fortunate that they call this community their home, and we want to do the best possible job to facilitate their expansion, to grow the community, and to manage the tensions that occur as we do that, and to use our judgment and our business rationale to make those choices wisely and prudently with the public resources. That's it for the chair's report. The EDA chair is unavailable today, so we will wait until our next meeting to hear from the EDA chair. And with that, I would like to ask Patrick to move forward on their metrics report.
Thank you. And now the hard work of the meeting begins. I know sometimes we think the action items, but in fact, it's at this stage of the meeting that we are presenting to you and foreshadowing decisions that we're going to be advancing at future meetings. And Pam, you mentioned a moment ago, Chair Wheelock, you mentioned a moment ago the roadmap, and there isn't such a great roadmap. But we do, from time to time, update the DMC development plan, and which does indeed provide us with, if not a map of, if not a roadmap, at least directionally how we should be spending our time and resources. And I'm just going to ask, we're using this metrics presentation to simply introduce where we are in the 5-year update, particularly the metrics look back and some of the data we're collecting to help determine market demand and future expectations. So I'll ask Catherine to just walk through where we are with that.
Thank you, Patrick. Good morning. So this is the metrics presentation where we're going to be focusing on our upcoming second 5-year update to the 20-year plan. As you're familiar, these are the sort of top line goals of the DMC initiative. And so everything eventually rolls up to these goals. And so that will be our guiding set of principles yet again for this update. So today we're going to quickly review the legislative requirements, the timeline, the scope of the retrospective analysis, which is currently out for RFP, and our next steps. So the legislation requires this update to occur every 5 years. The last update was in 2020, a time when we were in the midst of a lot of uncertainty and change. And so now we are nearing this halfway mark. And I think that there are still unknowns, but there are a lot of things that are known that we didn't know in the first 5-year update. The timeline should hopefully look familiar. This is what we've shown the last couple of quarters, but we're really at this moment now where we have issued the RFP for the backward-looking data collection to say, okay, what did occur over this various series of measurements in the first 10 years of the DMC? And then in the next couple of weeks, we anticipate actually issuing a second RFP for that look ahead to enlist consultant support in projecting and laying out a framework for the next 5 years, responding to what we know now at this moment in time. So that's where we are. Any questions? I welcome them.
Questions by any of the members, comments? Okay. Proceed.
Great, thank you.
Great. So if I can move ahead, we will. And I'll invite Mike Flynn to join as well. And Cindy, if you could join as well. What we want to do with this next presentation is introduce what we call foreshadowing or presenting work in progress on several key projects that you've heard us talk about in the past, but are maturing to a point where there may be a requested action at a future meeting. And two of those have to do with, well, I won't even steal your thunder with that, Catherine. I'll let you just introduce the two that you're going to talk about.
Great, thank you. So today, as Patrick mentioned, this is an opportunity to preview things that we think are coming to maturity and will be brought before the board probably as soon as early next year, potentially, with a request for action. So this is really an opportunity for you to understand kind of where these projects are today and provide any feedback or input as we continue these conversations. So the first one we're going to discuss is an update on the West Transit Village, and I'll have our partner, Cindy Steinhauser, also give an update briefly. There's been some exciting milestones achieved since last board meeting, and then we'll be discussing a project that has a public realm opportunity along that 2nd Street BRT corridor. So first off, just as a refresher, this is the West Transit Village, the western terminus of the BRT investment, and these are the various components that you have seen before. This is currently a Mayo surface parking lot, and they've entered into a partnership agreement with Aon and Krauss Anderson to develop this as a mixed-use site. And so there's been some exciting progress since last quarter's board meeting, and I'll hand it to Cindy here to briefly summarize that.
Sure, thank you, Catherine. So as she's indicated, lots of exciting traction related to West Transit Village. Of course, the Link BRT FTA funding, we had a great ceremony, appreciated all who could be here, including our federal electeds, to celebrate the award of the $85 million of federal funding. We are putting the finishing touches on the agreement, and its signature is imminent this month, and so the project is currently out for RFP. We've had pre-bid meeting. We feel very positive about the bidding environment for this project based on the inquiries we've received so far and the attendance at the pre-bid meeting. So hopefully awarding a bid in after the first of the year. The council did approve on Monday a development agreement between City and Mayo Clinic that really sets the stage for important infrastructure investment to happen, millions of dollars of infrastructure investment that will happen at West Transit Village to ready the site for private development. And so we're excited about that. And then continuing to progress the various design elements, look at other opportunities for funding for additional public realm enhancements that we see coming forward and necessary for that project. And I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Yeah, so the next steps that we anticipate here is the anticipated establishment of the West Transit Village site as a TIF district in the first quarter of next year. Mayo is expecting to start construction of the ramp on the eastern side of the site, hopefully as soon as the ground thaws in about March of next year. And there will be additional site infrastructure needs that we are continuing to work to develop to understand and potentially bring forward to this board.
Madam Chair?
Member Ryback?
What's your thought on whether we should make comments on this, which could slow it down, but we could put them in, or should we hold them?
Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and raise your comments or questions as we go through the presentation, since we have completed our action items.
All right, I'll keep it real short, but just a couple things on this. One is that this is a complicated project because it requires this interrelation between Mayo and the developer and the housing and all that. I want us to just continue to push Mayo to do as much as they can to have the parking they need during the week be available to others who may live there or want to shop there on off hours. I don't know what the status of that is. I don't think we should be discussing it necessarily in a broad thing, but I think we need to continue to encourage Mayo to say that the way that we free up land to do Unbound is by getting more people to park here. And we need to give them carrots and sticks, especially carrots. And one of them is that this is a place where there's viable retail, and that becomes more viable if you're sharing the thing. So just a point. The second point is that on this fragile themes, which is becoming fragilely overused, but I think is important, there is another amenity of why someone would live or park here, is that it's potentially incredibly pleasant to walk or bike to the clinic from here. Absolutely. If we really, really emphasize how that bike and pedestrian access gets through those last few blocks when you're in the Kutsky neighborhood. I mean, you can go under the freeway in a pretty way. You can go by this water feature. You can go by the creek in certain ways. But I think naming that and doing that makes sense. And the final point is, another reason why somebody would park here rather than in the core is that if you don't live in Rochester and you want to get back to the west, if we put more focus on the link between 14 and the frontage road, that there's a way that you can park there and get home 5 to 10 minutes faster if we figure out a good link from 14 on the frontage road. So those are in the weeds sorts of things, but I think there's a reason to look at that in the capital project.
Just point of order, clarification, do you mean West Circle Drive, the frontage road connecting Second Street Country Club to 14?
Yeah, I'm saying that if I'm coming in from the west on 14,
Yeah.
and currently I park in the center of town, I got to go through Civic Center Drive or down Second, and there's what you would consider in Rochester congestion, I'd consider to be a wonderful drive in Minneapolis, but anyway. If you figure out how that person can get out of the parking and then take the frontage road around the water feature and get over to 14, that's saving somebody to the west 5-10 minutes, and it I think is another reason to park here.
Could we go back to the three items that our team mentioned and just comment on those?
Yes, and I also saw Cindy's hand up, Patrick.
Yeah. So with that, Cindy, why don't you go ahead?
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Chair Wheelock. So just to the question around parking, as part of the agreement that was approved by the City Council on Monday, it does provide for a public parking component of the Mayo parking ramp. That public parking component is really focused on weekend activity, right? We understand the 24/7 operation Monday through Friday and the need for parking for Mayo's employees. And so the agreement does contemplate the ability to use the ramp in whole for public parking up to 18 days, calendar days Saturday or Sunday throughout the year so that if there's an event happening down there, we can make that available. If there's an event here at Mayo Civic Center that requires remote parking, that's a resource for us to tap into.
Any other questions or comments on this particular item? Patrick? any
Yeah,
further?
before we go any further, could I just, 'cause I just want to be sure we haven't lost the punchline here. We are making progress, and there's going to be more asked of you. So, because this is the vision we've all agreed to and that we've all signed up for. And the bite sizes that we've taken included the things that Catherine talked about and Cindy have talked about. But what will likely be coming forward is establishing a TIF district, and this will require DMC authorization because it will use the enabling legislation for this type of TIF district, which will capture the tax increment from the Mayo parking ramp
Yes.
and future development sites. And so that likely will come request of this board at as early as February, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
To authorize the city to proceed with that. Along with that, we'll be talking about what those TIF proceeds might be used for, which is likely to support additional infrastructure for public parking on the site and the housing project, the Cross Anderson housing project. AON, which is the affordable senior housing that wraps the parking ramp, is already in process, and we've already made a commitment to that. They are still assembling their capital stack, so they're not quite ready to go yet, but they're still progressing, and some of the TIF proceeds might be used to support that project as well.
That's correct. And if I could also add to the question around connectivity in that last block, we'll just say it, right? We talk about last mile in transit, but last block in terms of connecting pedestrians and the importance of connecting along the corridor. We currently have in the budget, the current year budget, funding to do design enhancement for around the St. Mary's beyond the BRT footprint. And so that we anticipate an RFP for services to go out shortly to lean into what you've talked about in terms of how do we create the experience that is welcoming for pedestrians to navigate to clinic for care or to the neighborhoods. So that work is underway as part of the current fiscal year budget.
So my job is done here.
It's done. You gave us the catchphrase, you're excused.
I think you'll want verification that all that's addressed when we come back and talk about TIF funding in the future. So, anything else on the West Transit Village from any of the members?
Back to you.
Okay, Patrick,
Thank you.
Catherine?
Great. Now we're turning to a second project, which is a redevelopment site on a largely vacant site along the BRT corridor. So it is related in the sense that it is also leveraging the infrastructure investment of the BRT corridor. The scope of this project could potentially include this mid-block public realm passageway, privately maintained public space agreement, 4-unit for sale prototype workforce condo project, which has been enumerated in the past as a board priority, 133-unit market rate apartment component, and a small ground floor retail component. So first, to give some context, the 2nd Street corridor, there has been planning in the works for this corridor for a significant amount of time. This is an image from the 2009 corridor planning study that demonstrated the need for these north-south sort of mid-block public passageways to break up some of the super blocks that occur along that corridor. And so this project really enables us to speak to that goal around public realm, connectivity to transit, and breaking up those super blocks. So that blue arrow you sort of see in the center there is the mid-block passageway that's proximate to this site. So the specific site that we're speaking to is indicated here in the center, where you see that green and black north-south arrow. You can also see the footprint of the Unbound components over there in the blue, and the 2nd Street corridor is that east-west blue line there, just to give you the context of where this this site is located. It's currently primarily an empty lot on Second, and then there are 2 single-family homes on the First Street side of the property. So zooming in a little bit further, so you can see more closely the scope and scale of the project. The public realm passageway is shown in both the blue and the red in the center there. The yellow indicates the land underneath the for sale workforce housing prototype. That project is being worked on in collaboration with the Community Land Trust and First Homes, local partners, community partners of ours. And so we're excited about the ability to potentially prototype for sale workforce housing available to community members making up to 80% of area median income. And then we have the northern component of the mid-block passageway park and the southern component there. And then what you're seeing in white along the bottom is a 133 unit market rate apartment building that is not seeking any financial support. What we've been in conversation with the development team about is really primarily the investment in this public realm opportunity to do this public-private partnership for that mid-block passageway to break up the super block, as well as coming in as a supporter for the land value to contribute to the city or the community land trust under the prototype workforce for sale housing there. I guess that's the last image there, and I'll pause for questions and comments.
Member Norton.
Yeah, on this walkway, and I shared a few concerns I have with Patrick about this particular project, but I won't bring those up right here, I don't think. But where is the BRT stops along the line there? Is this close to some of the BRT stops? That would be helpful to know. I don't.
Yes, thank you. I was, so the St. Mary's campus stop would be just like 3 parcels east of 11th Avenue, right? So it's like 3 or 4 parcels in.
Yeah.
So again, that's still a really long block between 11th Avenue and this mid-block connection. And so the BRT station and plaza area that would be there is another nice midpoint, not quite halfway point between here and 11th Avenue. And then the other is the next one is at 6th Avenue.
Where that little circle is?
Right, where that
one's a little further
circle
away.
node is, yes.
Yeah. So, as we look ahead, I'd like to dig into that. And then I also wanted to know about the community engagement for the neighborhoods with this. Have you had community engagement yet with the neighborhoods?
Yeah, so if I could just comment on that, and others can as well. Just as a reminder, this notion of creating these mid-block connections came out of a neighborhood development plan and a city development plan. So it shows up in the 2009 Second Street Corridor Plan and gets replayed in a number of other city plans and neighborhood plans over the years. There was never an opportunity to actually do a mid-block connection because all of this is privately owned land until this developer, who is friendly to this idea, said, I'm ready to do my development, and if you're interested, this may not be the place you would have chosen to do a mid-block connection, because it's not exactly mid-block, but it is being opportunistic with the landowner who is open to this idea. And so my response is there has been a lot of want, there continues to be a lot of want from the Kutzke community to feel more connected to both downtown and to Second Street. And this is being opportunistic to achieve one of those goals that surfaced in the Second Street Corridor Plan. And I'll additionally say that the design of the private development, which Catherine mentioned, 133 unit housing, not asking for any public money, takes advantage of the transit line in that there is only going to be about a 0.6 parking ratio. So 60 parking spots, 65 parking spots for a 133 unit building because of it being located on the transit line. And finally, this mid-block connection allows for, I think, a more efficient design of that building and movement of some of the trash and services, I guess, so that it, so it's a complicated story, but it provides a way that trash removal doesn't dead end and garbage trucks having to back up to get out, so.
I know those are always difficult decisions, and I appreciate, and I think it's important to discuss the closeness, the proximity to the transit lines as we have this discussion. To me, that matters. Also, I just want to encourage you to please, and maybe Gerard or whomever will do it as this goes on, to have community engagement. You may have had that discussion in 2009. I can tell you, knowing this neighborhood, there are some longtime owners, but there's also renters that move in and out and, you know, what have you. So just make sure you do the community engagement in advance, that people know it's coming, because otherwise we hear, you know, at the city level, and maybe by that time it might be too late for people to have the engagement. So I would
Yeah.
just encourage that.
No, I appreciate that, and we didn't mean to suggest that it was only in 2009. It just dates back to 2009 and has been a continued thread, but.
Yeah, if I may just build off of that, I would agree. It's been a continual thread. Obviously, a lot of engagement as we've been building out the concepts for the station design for BRT, and just by natural association and proximity to the neighborhood, we get other feedback related to the importance of connectivity. Obviously, there are some regulatory processes. They have to do a neighborhood information meeting, but built into the BRT process is a lot of communication along the corridor, and our holistic approach is, while we're there first and foremost about BRT, we're also there to understand how can we make this a great neighborhood? How can we, if you see there's a 5-minute walk shed, what does it feel like in that 5-minute walk shed, not only to benefit BRT, but to benefit development along this corridor? So that is very much top of mind as we have these engagement efforts.
Madam Chair?
Member Ryback?
One of the things I think as we're looking at Second is we're putting a lot of pressure on Second. We're asking it to do a whole lot of things, and I get it. But one of the things that's sort of interesting when you think about it is I think we want this to be a transit, but we also want it to be a pleasant walk, place where you can walk maybe to your home, or maybe just to get some shade, but also to maybe to a small restaurant. So if you think about the restaurants that are there and you think about the ones that could be there, one of the things that's really going to increasingly be a challenge is where does somebody park for that? Well, we're rightfully focusing on transit, but here's where I contradict everything I've been saying for 8 years. While I think it's important to have remote parking, if you think about, those of you who have been to 50th in France, about how small public parking is tucked into places that makes it possible for short trips, not people going for long periods of time, like to a restaurant. If I understand this site right, there's a lot of height behind it. That's where the hill starts, right? Am I wrong?
Across the street.
So I'm wrong. So I'm
Slightly.
First time ever.
many, many times ever. But I'm making an argument to consider whether there should be some short-term hour and a half parking that people can come in and out of as a way to really make sure that we continue to have viable restaurants. It's not going to be like a mega strip, but thinking a little bit about weaving that in somewhere is counterintuitive, but I think could be helpful.
Other comments? I would just simply add that there is an element like this in the neighborhood I live in, a very long block that would have 3 to 4 streets dead ending into it. And there is a public easement and a sidewalk that cuts through it that is very popular with the pedestrian experience and for the people that live in that neighborhood to move easily and freely between one part of that bigger neighborhood and another. So I think this can be very effective as a way to create an amenity that connects people to the opportunities outside of their very long block. So the devil is in the details, of course, both about the design, construction, and maintenance, but we look forward to hearing back more about this.
So we'll bring the devil next meeting.
All right, anything else on this agenda item?
Just to the final of the development projects that we're actively working on, I'll turn to Mike. You've heard us talk about our work around the shared lab infrastructure, and we continue to make progress on that. And Mike, I'll let you.
Sure, thank you. Before I jump into sort of where we're at with this, I want to just frame the context. We're really coming to, I think, a critical point of what has been a multi-year journey that started with us gathering a lot of data nationally and globally around what our target customer for Discovery Square would need from an infrastructure perspective. And after we sort of generated those ideas, we spent a tremendous amount of time and energy benchmarking how other markets that had similar needs solved for those problems, identifying partners that could help us unlock this asset, and spent a tremendous amount of time in 2024 working with some individual partners trying to figure out if there was a pathway forward for us. I would say over the last 6 months we've had some pivot and have got us to the point now where we think we have 2 options to bring forward for consideration in February in terms of how to solve this need here in Rochester. And before I get to those 2 options, I wanted to just provide some context. When we talk about shared lab or turnkey lab, we're really talking about a public piece of infrastructure designed to allow us to achieve the job creation and investment creation goals we have inside of the DMC district. And part of this assessment that we've done and the benchmarking and the research we've done has really been to drive to this needs assessment. And I'm not going to read through all of this, but it's a fairly succinct look at the types of companies and innovators we're going to be able to attract and retain in this market. And I think the retain part is an important part to consider. The things that we have to build, you can see in that types of space, really outline the physical infrastructure that we're going to look to accommodate here. And part of the beauty and somewhat the challenge of this market is we have a healthcare institution that is a mile wide and a mile deep, and we have innovators doing things in a variety of spaces that from an infrastructure perspective require us to build a fairly unique asset. We have customer groups coming both from inside of Mayo Clinic but also regionally, nationally, and globally that all have their own set of requirements. We are not sort of a market that focuses on one technology domain, but you can see we're doing things in a variety of spaces. All of this is to say we have a very diverse set of partners and a very diverse set of requirements we're trying to achieve with this project, which is part of the reason why it's taken us a year to figure this out. I think we are in a very good position in terms of aligning all of our various stakeholders and what their goals and objectives are to the DMC goals and objectives, which are really jobs and investment inside of Discovery Square, the sub-district. And looking forward to, after the first of the year in the February meeting, bringing to this board a request for funding for one of 2 possible solutions, and you can see those here. We refer to them as the local solution and the national solution. And there are some fairly basic details there about what this product would look like from an infrastructure perspective. And we continue as recently as yesterday working through some details in terms of what this space will look like, what it will be able to accommodate, and more importantly, what we think we can achieve out of this space from a jobs and investment standpoint. If we jump back, you can see we are very focused on success metrics. So if we make this investment in this asset, what can we reasonably expect to get out of it? And you can see it's innovators and startup companies that are generating employment, generating investment, more importantly, generating technology that really represents life-saving and life-extending innovations from inside of Mayo Clinic to get out to the market. We want to make sure this is a space that accommodates companies as they grow, so we want a fair amount of new companies in there and companies that are graduating out into bigger blocks of space. We want to bring additional funding into this market through various partners that are not already here. So our interest is really not in building an asset for the sake of building an asset, but it's building an asset that's going to generate the type of economic activity that I think is really core to the DMC mission. So we are, I would say, in the final stages of coming to a determination of which of these 2 options is the best for us. Again, we need an equipped space that is highly flexible, that is priced accordingly for that innovator or startup, that is rich on ideas and maybe less rich on capital, give them a place to come and incubate an idea and hopefully turn that into a company that we can have in Rochester for years to come. So I think I've got more notes, but maybe I'll stop there and see if
Could I just ask a clarifying question? You have 3 options listed there. The other is revisit the market, but are you really focused on the first 2 and expect to bring one of those first 2 to the February meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments? Member Ryback?
When I looked at this slide, my immediate reaction was, well, we're a destination medical center, of course, we should have a national solution. As I thought about that a little more, I feel it would be great when you come back to give us more information that helps us really address this question, which is, I definitely get the left side. And what I really hope that we see is for emerging businesses who are just starting up to say, hey, we're going to save you from having to raise all this capital to build a bunch of infrastructure to start out with. That I really get. I don't know whether once they begin to get bigger, whether they would have their own proprietary area, or when you're talking about how deep Mayo is, that they would have to make a massive investment in something that may evolve so much so quickly over time that our one piece of infrastructure couldn't continue to evolve around that. So my sense is that the market we're going after is the one on the left, and that we should double down on that, because what we really want to do is to create a startup ecosystem that is especially focused on new growth. But I don't have any background on that, so can you give us context? You don't need to do it now, but if you can.
Well, no, but there might just be one comment. So when we talk about a local solution and a national solution, there are firms that we can partner with that help run these types of facilities. When we say national solution, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a national operator.
I get it. My mistake. My mistake. So let me put my question then in a different context. So sorry about the mistake, but I'm really trying to think about, is this something that should be a, vanilla is the wrong word, but a basic sort of area that anyone could use at an early stage, or should we be building deeply sophisticated something or other for something else? Should we build something that is more inclusive and not as deep, or should we build something that is highly sophisticated and wouldn't really work for that early stage group?
Well, I don't think
Maybe
those
that's
things
not
are,
a choice.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think what we are trying to build is a highly sophisticated, highly flexible real estate asset that lends itself to that innovator that is really in that ideation stage. I have an idea, I think there's market potential, but I have to work through a long series of steps to get that to a commercial perspective. We are trying to accommodate that individual. We're also trying to accommodate a big part of our customer base is, I have a technology in Asia that's approved in an Asian market, but I want to bring it to the US. And so I have to go through regulatory processes. I have to understand reimbursement. And I need a place to come and park that more market-tested idea because it's new to this geography. And that company has a different set of real estate needs than the idea that's coming potentially for us out of Mayo Clinic. And there's a whole host of stages of companies inside of that paradigm. And to my point earlier about being a mile wide and a mile deep, we're not just talking about a wet lab user like a cell therapy company. We're talking about device companies that have a whole different set of technology and infrastructure needs. We're talking about healthcare AI companies that maybe have big data needs but don't really need to be at a bench in a lab doing things. We have all of those ideas here. It's what makes this community special, but we have to build an asset to accommodate those. One of the challenges with the national solution is there are not many groups that service that wide of customer base is what we're trying to accommodate here.
I see.
So doing it ourselves, there are challenges with that, but I think there's also advantages because we understand our business better than anybody.
Got it. Thank you.
I appreciate that this will be discussed more fully with more intentionality and focus at the February meeting. I also expect that the level of investment for tenant improvements will be a non-trivial number, and so let's make sure that we get the proposal out and socialize that among members so that we're ready to take action on the schedule that's necessary to keep this moving forward. But this is a great opportunity for a space that exists right now in a shell form, in a premier location. And we appreciate the complexity of finding the right solution, the right partnerships, and the clarity about tying it to very specific goals is appropriate and will be critical for our decision-making. So thank you for your work on this issue.
Madam Chair, could I ask Member Baker, who sits with Mayo and understand, like, what is your perspective on this? I mean, you've been,
Well, I've been going through a lot. I've also built labs
yeah, I know. So,
over,
so instead of me blabbing about this, how about you telling us what's
I
reality?
understand the challenge, right? I mean, you'd rather do the national, you gotta get an operator. Can you get somebody willing to come in here and put the capital in, right, on spec? And meaning without knowing how they're gonna make money, right, going in at this point. You know, of course, Mel, this would be a great asset. We all want it. The flexibility is gonna be key, because you can't predict the future. It's a fairly uncertain time in this industry, given what's going on. I'm on the Merck board as well, and in other places, given what's going on in the national healthcare arena right now in terms of regulatory future. And so I'm sure some of that uncertainty, I don't know if it's crept into the earlier conversations, it'll be in your conversations right now. They're all trying to figure out some of this. So yeah, this is important to have. I think we've got to go face what the situation is as it evolves. But ultimately, yeah, do we go on our own? You know, if you do one, it doesn't mean two can't happen.
Right.
That is,
Right? So, you know, you're doing a small one, we'll do it ourselves. It is expensive, right? Because fundamentally what you need to have is, yeah, med device don't need all the same technologies that wet lab guys do, but you have to have this wet lab abled, or you're limiting your capabilities long-term, right? So you gotta have water, gas, electric, power, I mean, all the right stuff at the right voltages, right? So that you can make this quite flexible, a lot like Mayo's doing in the way they're building their new facilities. They're doing with ultimate flexibility. So you can turn patient rooms long-term into operating theaters or vice versa.
Got it.
Right, because you can't predict what the world's gonna look like in 30 years.
and we are working with some of those very people you just named in designing this space.
Right.
It does make it more expensive, but it sort of, it risk-proofs it decades out into the future to
Yeah.
say if it can work for all users, a wet lab can become a dry lab, can become an office, can become a prototyping space.
Right, but if you build it as a dry lab, it's not gonna turn into a wet lab.
Correct.
So,
Good.
And
All right, we
I
look
would-
forward to hearing more about that in February. Thank you.
So I think you have a good picture of what the February agenda is going to
Right,
include.
yes.
Public infrastructure, shared lab, Girard and West Transit Village, likely coming forward.
Thank you. This is helpful preparation for that decision-making session. All right, thank you, staff. We'll move on. I'd like to welcome our Chancellor of the University of Minnesota Rochester campus, Dr. Lori Carroll.
So the star of the show, is we're welcoming her to the table, fresh back from her White House visit, where she was acknowledged as one of the leading innovators in higher education today, and really looking forward to her presentation and the conversation about how DMC can imagine engaging with University of Minnesota Rochester as it continues to grow.
Well, thank you, Patrick, and good morning. Thank you so much for your time on the agenda today and for your interest in the future of this city's University of Minnesota campus. I'm here to share our expansion plans and to spark our collective imagination about how partnerships could help us address shared goals. As you well know, the University of Minnesota Rochester is in the middle of all that DMC has been developing here in the heart of Rochester, Minnesota. Your work at DMC continues to fuel economic growth, restore health, and catapult new discoveries, and our work is to develop talent to lead that work into the future. We serve one clear purpose: developing human potential to meet the talent demands of the healthcare and life sciences sector in a city with the top job growth in the state. We like to say that, don't we?
Over and over.
As we work to support the success of more students with research-based practice, we are also innovators leading change in higher education. This startup campus was graduating our first class when the idea for DMC emerged and saw success with the Minnesota legislature in 2013. I came in 2014, and our team was invigorated by the extraordinary opportunities in this nationally distinctive context. As a campus of the University of Minnesota, we are also connected to many partners within the research enterprise of our Big Ten school, with well over $1 billion in research funding, and most of that funding focused on health sciences. Our students are attracted to Rochester for a reason, with facilities embedded in walkable proximity to research and clinical internships. Yet, to expand enrollment, we need our students to also have walkable proximity to entertainment and recreation, all within a downtown community that supports their sense of belonging. UMR's plans are connected to the broader strategic vision of the University of Minnesota. Dr. Rebecca Cunningham, the new university president, is a physician. She served previously as a vice president for research and innovation at Michigan, and she had this to say for you today. Give you a moment to read her statement. President Cunningham has visited Rochester 3 times already, touring our campus, meeting with Dr. Ferrugia and other community leaders, and endorsing UMR's value in a co-authored editorial published in the Post-Bulletin. One of her early actions was to add UMR to the new Health Sciences Strategic Plan, focused on addressing Minnesota's healthcare workforce shortages. This plan is one of 4 budget priorities expected to head to the legislature after Board of Regents approval next week. Further, the Campus and Climate Action Plan that I'm sharing today was approved by the Board of Regents this fall. So UMR's expansion is part of the broader University of Minnesota strategy. There's an executive summary of the Campus and Climate Action Plan linked in your materials, but I want to especially emphasize these 4 principles. The principles will be essential to decision-making as opportunities emerge. There are so many moving parts, right? Your work, Mayo's Unbound project. For us, there are lease extension options at a couple of our leased facilities that provide the opportunity for us to negotiate for climate-enhancing upgrades. So because of these and other moving parts, the principles are critical and will ground our decision-making. So first, we will be flexible. This is our special skill as a startup. For example, we pivoted from that terrific joint project with the YMCA when we had to the renovation of leasing of a local hotel. Second, we're going to work to meet students' needs, of course. This proximity variable is important to internships, but as I mentioned, also proximity to entertainment and recreation. It's a gap at present. When we think about college towns like Madison or Ann Arbor, we see amenities that attract and engage students while also serving the broader community. So I was just in Madison for Thanksgiving, and everyone at our gathering, all ages, wanted to walk State Street and stroll along the lake. Of course, there is a size differential, but the Madison example is a relevant image to consider as we work together to enhance vibrancy in this sweet spot of what's good for patients and visitors, what's good for students and other downtown residents, and what's good for our community. Our third principle, with all who are invested in downtown Rochester, we aspire to create and sustain hospitable, safe, and secure facilities and outdoor spaces that enhance students' sense of belonging. It's such an important variable. And by the way, we're so grateful for Discovery Walk. It's been terrific. Students love it. Finally, we're steadfast in making decisions that advance the university's commitment to carbon neutrality by 2050. Our consultants for this plan from Sasaki and the university's sustainability leaders were just so impressed with Rochester's thermal energy network plans. We are planning this facilities expansion in the next 3 years in conjunction with academic program expansion to attract and accommodate 1,500 students. Remember, ultimately, UMR enrollment increases generate more University of Minnesota graduates ready for career launch in the life sciences. So I'd like to call your attention on this list to the student identified need for a heart of the campus. So we have a heart of the city, but with this metro campus approach that we've taken with distributed space, we're now across 6 buildings. Our students are longing for a central gathering spot that is contiguous to other frequently used spaces like classrooms and faculty interaction space. So to spark your imagination a little bit, here's a diagram of how an existing space could be remodeled. The Just Ask space you see is a high-impact practice approach to faculty-student interaction. It increases the retention of first-generation students, which is really important to our campus. But this is one depiction. Here is a depiction of a potential look and feel for the heart of the campus. Lighting is key. So much of our current space is windowless. Another way to optimize light is to use transparent walls for active learning classrooms. Of course, sound mitigation will be critical if we do that, but I hope those images are helpful. Also part of the plan, partnership initiatives, and this is where truly exciting ideas can emerge. I think synergistic is the word. Sometimes that word is used a little too frequently, but I really think it fits here. The Immersion Lab for Learning Research could be a collaboration with Mayo educators. They're working on holograms to transmit specific advanced knowledge, often surgical knowledge. They're also working with Google on AI twins. If you haven't seen that demo, you need to. It's fascinating to try to figure out who's a real person. But while they're doing that, our faculty, given their research focus, are studying the learning impacts of various new tools and practices across a variety of student demographics. You may also want to imagine shared recreation and well-being amenities serving the community and the campus. For example, with our partners, we have this established Center for Flourishing. With additional partners, we could expand from programming just for students to mental health support tailored for our community of health professionals and providing those services. You may imagine childcare shared with downtown residents and staffed in part by UMR students.
Nice.
Imagine the university's presence in those shared labs you were just hearing about and those research facilities and the tech transfer support that we have in those networks, noting the importance of undergraduate research as a best practice for life sciences students. Our University of Minnesota research partners have much to contribute to the biotech ecosystem in Rochester, and they are keen to expand their presence here. And later, you may even imagine senior and student housing combined, noting that a majority of our students come as first years with their CNA already completed in high school. And then a cherry on top, please imagine that these facilities are on the cutting edge of sustainability, drawing visitors who want to see what is possible. As is true with any startup that makes it to the 15-year mark, and this is according to Harvard Business Review, we are at an inflection point in the history of this campus. The way forward necessarily includes strategic investment. We need the expanded facilities and additional human expertise to support growth before we recruit the additional students. Startups in public higher education are rare. The only other such public university launch in this century started with $100 million to build the facilities to attract the faculty before they recruited the students. That's UC Merced. So one option could have been for UMR to stay small and specialized and exemplary. But the workforce demands, coupled with the land-grant mission of the university and the distinctiveness of this context, compel us to keep growing. Given our educational outcomes to date, you can trust UMR to continue to innovate and evolve our educational practice in collaboration with the health and biotech ecosystem. So, like other startups, we are working to assemble the necessary funds for growth. We anticipate multiple sources of investment, including the state of Minnesota. As mentioned, President Cunningham has a strategic focus on health with a budget request that prioritizes growing Minnesota's healthcare workforce. That request includes $5.5 million as partial funding for the Rochester expansion I've described, and will be advocating, as you might expect, with the legislature during the upcoming session. Other funds will be needed too, and when the funds are assembled, our facilities and programmatic expansions will begin. We are open, of course, to creative funding ideas, including P3s and multi-purpose spaces. I think we have demonstrated that openness, and facilities could be named for funders who make the needed growth possible. And we've gotten permission for that to be so, even with lease space, when those leases are long-term. Destination Medical Center has been enhancing downtown Rochester for a decade. All you have done contributes to our ability to recruit students to live and learn and play downtown. Thank you. And all of us in this room know Mayo Clinic's Unbound expansion in Rochester creates a season of unprecedented opportunity. A thriving University of Minnesota campus is an essential element of this exciting future as our students contribute to a flourishing downtown, even as they prepare to contribute as future designers of solutions to the grand health challenges of the 21st century. Please remember that UMR vision statement. This campus was built on 3 principles. Students are at the center, research informs practice, and partners make it possible. Some of you were present for our State of the Campus event, Learning Unbound. During that event, award-winning faculty and students described transformative learning experiences. One of those professors, microbiologist Dr. Kelsey Metzger, said it well, and I'm quoting, "At UMR, learning unbound as part of our culture and practice means the freedom to follow the evidence and implement what we know to be the best ways to support student learning and development. Rather than being bound by institutional inertia or historical practice, at UMR we are free to grow and change right along with our students," unquote. And might I add, right along with DMC and the sector we serve. As we look forward to a future of unbound opportunity in this city of care and innovation, you can count on UMR's educational entrepreneurs as the local partner developing human potential to meet emerging needs. Our expansion will serve that important goal as we work in partnership to advance the common good of this community. So, open to questions.
Well, thank you very much. Members, are there questions and comments?
I feel like we should say something.
Well, if nobody wants to go, I definitely do.
How about Member Norton first?
Well, I mean, honestly, I get very emotional even just listening to the presentation. And I'm just so thrilled with what you're doing at the university. And I think it's vital that the City of Rochester and the University of Minnesota and DMC all continue to have a strong partnership, to know what you're doing, when you're doing it, why you're doing it, and that we're a partner at the table to make sure that the university is successful. I don't think we will be as successful as a city if we don't do that. So I will just say I was particularly impressed with your immediate actions for the next 3 years. I think those are going to be vital. I know Council President Carlson and I talk a lot about the need for childcare, and I think the opportunity that you're talking about is exactly what we need in our downtown. Childcare near our largest employer, childcare opportunities and healthcare opportunities for folks. So I'm thrilled. I've started a conversation with a reinvestment fund about possibilities of getting some planning funding for something. So I'm happy to talk with you about those very early conversations. And I'm just thrilled with the outcomes you've had, which we didn't talk about today, but I want the folks at the table to just be aware we should be holding up the University of Minnesota Rochester at every opportunity for the outcomes we have with our students, for the diversity and growth that you have. And, you know, I have to say, much as I was shocked at the number of, if you look at the gender enrollment, it's quite heavy female, but that makes me feel good too, because we are creating this next generation of powerful leaders in the healthcare industry. So I'm just really excited about what you have brought forward and hope everyone else is as well.
Thank you for those comments and the encouragement. We look forward to continued conversations. I would just note for those who are not aware that our incoming class this year is over 70% underrepresented, and that includes 46% BIPOC, so the most diverse campus in the University of Minnesota, with no so-called achievement gap, completion gap, given the research-based practice that we've employed. And know that that has been made possible because we started with a blank canvas and made this commitment to research-based practice. For other campuses, there's a major change management that would be needed to put all of those practices in place for students, though of course we recommend it.
I would add, in another of my previous jobs, I had a role at the University of Minnesota in campus planning and capital projects. And it always impressed me about the Rochester campus, the clarity and obvious, transparent way that student interests were the top priority about space use, and the efficiency of the space use, and the creativity around thinking about partnerships through leased space versus what is often a very slow, highly competitive, and highly uncertain process of trying to acquire capital funds for owned space. So I appreciate the progress you have been able to make. I think it is really critically important about trained workforce goals for this community to support Mayo's expansion, and we look forward to continuing to discuss with you how to help you achieve your goals in a unique system like the University of Minnesota system. So thank you for being here today. This was very helpful, and we appreciate your continued efforts to achieve those successes and goals for your institution.
Thank you.
Any other comments, Member Carlson?
Just very quickly, wonderful presentation. You know, I think the world of you as a leader in your innovation. We're so lucky to have you here in our community and how nimble you are in thinking about how do we adapt and continue to grow and improve. So this is exciting to hear the update. I heard you loud and clearly about the needing things to do. And I think as this board moves forward and thinks about how the riverfront is redeveloped and opportunities to really engage the UMR and students in those new projects will be really, really exciting. So look forward to seeing how that unfolds.
Thank you.
Member Ryback?
First off, you know, I think with you and this vision in this position and the new head of the university, we've got a really special moment and with Unbound and all that. There's a whole lot of stuff here, but the one I want to really focus on is this idea of campus life and what's the there. I actually really love seeing students now walking through the streets and skyways, and it really creates more grist. But also when you're at a campus, you kind of want to have a place that you all belong, right? And you laid out some good visions there. I wonder if there's something we can do to actually put some points on the board right away with this. My thought is that if, say, I own property around this area, and I was, say, trying to build a housing project, and what am I going to put on that ground floor? And then I see that, or maybe I have a series of storefronts on that are in the historic area, but I haven't been able to find a viable tenant. What if we worked with you to package the idea of a student center and say, we've got X amount of dollars to do this, maybe from the state, maybe part of this, and put out an RFP to the development community and said, we really want to create a center of campus life, create this campus center, and bid it out. You know, like, I really wish the Armory was in this part of town, because that would be sort of a cool thing. But challenge the development community and say, we've got a tenant for your ground floor, and it's a tenant that's going to bring a lot of folks in. Maybe that also inspires that developer to say, hey, I can fill half of this building, but maybe half should be student housing. I'm kind of making this up a little bit, but instead of just us waiting to do a fully public building, what if this was a tenant and we made a RFP in partnership with you and said that we want to aggressively move toward creating a center for campus life? Maybe the co-op comes forward and says, you know, let's do a covered parking, and above that, put the student center, and above that, put student housing. I don't know who will come forward, but I just think that's a very tangible thing that can and should be moved forward now.
Great. Thank you so much for thinking out loud there. May I just note that the idea for this heart of the campus did come from the students, and you reference as a student center, and we want it in proximity to the rest of our campus spaces and all of that. But it's really quite a serious matter that the sense of belonging is the key variable that determines if a student completes college or not. And completing in a timely manner is important in terms of affordability, but the squandering of human potential from a student who doesn't feel a sense of belonging and leaves is what really grieves us. And so rather than something superfluous, this is actually central to our mission.
And the only, we'll move on from here. The only other caveat that I would add is proximity is relative. And so when you look at the East and West Bank and St. Paul campuses in the Twin Cities, Kaufman Union, is that proximate to the students' interests or not, as compared to the heart of downtown? So I think there is room to think creatively about how do you meet your needs, as you have evidenced in the history of this campus. So I think it is a interesting concept, and I'm sure it will get plenty of discussion and evaluation after this meeting ends today. So thank you for your presence here again.
Thank you for your
today,
time.
and we welcome having you here. All right, so the last item on the agenda are the status reports. As you know, there are updates in the board packets and posted on the publicly available sites. Are there any questions or comments on any of the status reports that were in your packet? Then seeing none, I will thank you for being here today. We will stand adjourned, and our next regular meeting is scheduled for February 6th here at the Civic Center. So thank you for your time.
Right. Jeez.